Hello, Internet. This is Ewan Spence and ESC Insight calling. Thanks, news. That's what I call Eurovision season getting underway. Coming up, Eurovision fans Google Nightwish, Big Five return to internal selections, and banning the 4-hour show. Yes, good afternoon, good morning, good evening, welcome as we pick up the news from another 2 weeks in the world of the Eurovision Song Contest. We had news, we had castaways, we had news, and we have more surprises and stuff coming up in the next 20 minutes or so. Not all the Big Five are returning to internal selections, just some of them, so don't get too distraught, don't get too worried. We're going to be leading up into all of that as we look forward to the Eurovision Song Contest in 2020, which of course we now know is in Rotterdam, and Junior Eurovision, which is happening in Poland in Gliwice later on this year on November the 24th. Let's start with the grown-ups. Alright then, we're up to 33 confirmed in public, and remember that although the entry forms need to be in by probably this week or next, that's a private thing between the broadcaster and the EBU, so there is a grace period of another few weeks once the delegation fees are calculated with budgets and everything, and everybody's given it, you're going to have to pay this much. Are you sure? Yes, no, because broadcasters are allowed a second chance if they want to enter or leave something, and so don't expect a public confirmation and naming of all the countries entering the Song Contest just yet. I suspect it's late October at the earliest, but it may, gut feel is you're talking about mid to late November to get an actual official confirmation out of EBU. One name you should not be looking at is Kazakhstan. Although it is invited to its second Junior Eurovision this year, the EBU has stated the public broadcaster Kabar agency will not be in Rotterdam for the Eurovision Song Contest. Speaking of Rotterdam, let's just remind you, because the hardcore know this already, but for those of you who are just coming to the podcast this week, May 12th and May 14th will be the two semi-finals at the Ahoy Theatre in Rotterdam, and Saturday 16th of May for the grand final. If you're looking around at the moment for hotel prices and Airbnbs, they are quite high at the moment. That's to be expected. Wait a bit, our recommendation is late March. The prices will start to crash down when people realise that the rooms are still empty. Or buy a room now, but make sure it's either pay as you arrive and it's refundable and you don't lose any money on it, so you can change at a later date. As for tickets, none are on sale yet. Okay, the pricing hasn't been decided, the agency, none of those details. Right, if you're seeing tickets on sale now, it's with a tout or someone who's doing a future. And that means that you give them the money, they will go and find you the ticket. And they'll obviously make the profit on the difference. If they don't find a ticket, you don't get a ticket either. Okay, so just hold fire. It may look interesting to get it, and you may feel you want to get everything locked in and locked down, but you really can't get everything locked down. It will happen. And if not, there's going to be a great big Eurovillage on a bridge or a screen somewhere. So you will have to be done that. Speaking of the Ahoy Theatre, 2 dates need to be cleared from their schedule because Eurovision needs an 8-week window for all of these contests to take place. We reckon that's like 3 weeks of building up the theatre, the rigging and the staging, 2 weeks of closed rehearsals while they sort out the camera angles and test everything, 1 week of the delegation rehearsal, what we tend to call week 1 when we're doing the news podcast, and then the week of Eurovision itself, the second week where the press and community is on the ground, and then a week to de-rig for a total of 8 weeks. That means that May the 9th 20th anniversary concert from folk musician Frank van Etten and the Night of Orange Music Festival on April the 26th, which is at a 27-year unbroken run at the Ahoy Theatre, are going to be moved. So if you have tickets for those, keep an eye on websites for changes and details and more arrangements being made. And here comes some pure speculation on my part. The semi-finals do need some interval acts, and 2 acts have been gracious enough to step aside without causing too much contractual difficulties for the Ahoy Theatre. Don't be surprised if the Night of Orange and Frank van Etten pop up somewhere in the running order of the semi-finals. What else do we have? Because, of course, the bid documents have been published and there's been a fair amount of discussion in the Dutch media and what's going on. And the team from NOS, NPO and Avril Tross are looking to make some concept changes to the Eurovision Song Contest and sort of leave a stamp, a legacy on the contest in the same way that the they introduced the postcards in 1970 because the running time was too short. And Guy Freeman at the BBC made sure that the country's name and number was always on the bottom screen. Some sort of a big or a small, but they're looking to make an impact. So, they're looking at the 4 hour length of show, the huge lengthy intervals that are going on. So we may see some shifting in the scheduling and the timetabling of the programme. There's been a lot of outreach going on with a number of experts in various areas of TV, production, entertainment, design, and so on. Anyone who does production of any media knows that you go in with great intentions and a great list of things you need to address, but at the same time, you've still got to get the show out on May the 12th, the 14th and 16th. That clock is always ticking, so you're happy to pull off some, if not most of them. What legacy we end up with in May and afterwards is going to be fun to follow what the Dutch are thinking and what actually sticks to the contest going through. Now, something else from the press conferences and TV chat shows that have been going on. Head of the board for the broadcasters is saying that they're looking at a budget of around 15 to 20 million euros for the Eurovision Song Contest. It's a bit lower than the sort of previous expectations. I think off the top of my head, you were looking at about 25 to 27 million in Vienna, for example. And they are going to be looking to the Dutch government for a contribution. So, as usual, there's going to be some toing and froing going on there. I'm just going to note here that there is ongoing legal action now between Israeli broadcaster Kan and Live Nation and the Madonna Interval Act that we had in Eurovision 2019, and we'll move on from that now before I step on any legal toes. That said, I do suspect that's the end of stunt casting and handing over the Interval Act to an outside party and leaving them to get on with it. Turns out the best thing to do is to follow RTP's model when Portugal was hosting the Eurovision Song Contest, and the example they made with Caetano Veloso, a superstar of music who appeared there very subtly. If you knew who it was, you were amazed. If not, it was a really great performer in the interact next to Salvador. What else? Well, the other question that fans asking about Netherlands hosting the Eurovision Song Contest is what happens to Eurovision in concert? We have an answer. It's on Saturday the 4th of April. It will be at its new home of the FAS Live Arena, where it's been for the last 2 years. Tickets are not yet on sale. Watch the website, but Eurovision in concert is going to be happening. Why would you break an unbroken run if you don't have to? And now, Junior Eurovision, Sunday, 24th of November 2019. Poland is our host, and they will be bringing us to the Gliwice Arena, which we're expecting is about 10 to 11,000 tickets, not yet on sale on that one. Entry list still at 19, locked in nicely, with Spain as a returning country, which, given what they're doing with their selection for adult contest, I find very, very curious. Anyway, we'll come on to that. We do have some bits and pieces to pick up here. Armenia have held their national selection. That happened last Sunday with a public televote and a jury. We have the winner of Karen Ignatian's Colours of Your Dream. Sam's got a little note here in my script that this is a song that's got a huge pedigree in the backroom team, co-written by Avet Barshagian, who had a hand in the Junior Eurovision entries for Armenia in 2015, 2016 and 2017, co-hosted in 2011, and worked with Inya and Anush for Yan Yan in the Grown Up contest in 2009. Those were the ones with the laser beams on their fingers. On the writing staff, you also have Taras Demchuk, who wrote and composed Polina Brzezowski's Wings, which won Junior Eurovision in 2017. Armenia are fielding a very, very strong team on this one. 10 ran. Ireland now, and the third heat for their selection was held last Sunday. Savannah makes it through to the September 29th semi-final, and a 6-part performance group are taking through to the sing-off. In total, for this heat, 7 ran. Unlike in previous years, we are hearing English language cover songs from the competitors at this stage, rather than potential songs for Junior Eurovision. Ireland have always brought Irish songs off to Junior Eurovision, so expect Irish or bilingual to be the final song when we hear it. at some point before the 24th of November. Poland's Naska Nasuska rolls on with the heats, participating singing songs by Polish pop acts and the Ingia 2004 entrant Blue Cafe. Vicky Gabor heads on to the final. She'll join last week's qualifier Nicola Fedor. Final is on 29th of September and 7 ran. And for over in Wales, who are making their second entry, we have our sixth final score for Quilo Am Seren, which will be held on Tuesday coming up, the 24th of September, back in Llandudno there once more. Sofia Seris, Erin Caris, the group E Minis and the duet Mackenzie and Rhiannon are in a fight to take the ticket to Poland. 6 fell, 12 ran. Internal selections, 2 bits of note here as well. Australia have revealed their singer for Junior Eurovision, fresh off the 4th place finish of The Voice. Not The Voice Kids, the grown-up Voice. We have the 14-year-old Perth native Jordan Rabone. He's going to be the first male singer to represent Australia at the Junior Eurovision Song Contest, and he turns 15 and becomes ineligible for Junior Eurovision 3 weeks after the contest. Now, the age limits and age bands just keep moving around at Junior Eurovision, so I suspect there have been older performers, but he's likely to be the oldest performer this year. I don't have a spreadsheet to sort that out, but we'll get that sorted out for you by the 24th. And over in Serbia, just as we headed in to record the podcast, the internal selection of Daria Vrasovic has happened with the song Speak Up. The song's not yet been released, we just have the name. And that's us for Junior Eurovision results for this podcast. Arguably, that's us for results full stop in this podcast, because we don't have any internal selections that have been made for the grown-up contest. We don't have any competitive results. We don't have any more names or anything announced in terms of acts. In terms of selections, we'll come to that in a second. First up is probably going to be Festivali Kenias over in Albania, which is going to be like the last week or so of December. And we got the Czech Republic's national final on Saturday, the 25th of January. We might get some internal selections and some names before then, but we will just have to get that and keep you up to date. If so, follow us on Facebook and Twitter to keep an eye on those things. Both are /ESC Insight at the website as well, escinsight.com, and here on the podcast. Right, rounding up some of the news from the individual broadcasters and countries. We'll start with Estonia here. February 13th and February the 15th are going to be the two semi-finals for SDLL. Grand final is going to be on February the 29th. The entry window is now open, so you can get your submissions in. More details are on the ERR website. They close on November the 6th. Over in Finland, we got some more details about UMK. It's expected to be a one-shot multi-artist final with between 4 and 10 acts, so it will depend on the songs that are coming through. The submissions to this open up on November the 1st and close on November the 8th. So basically, you've got the postbox open for a week. You can be working on the entry now and have everything ready. New music station YLEX is involved, and manager of the station, Tapio Haxon, has said that the artist should send something unique and authentic and not try and write something specifically for Eurovision. Give that man dues points for getting it. Over in Iceland, their participation has been confirmed as well. Dates for Songvakepp in 2020 have been released. We have a format that's pretty much the same. Icelandic songwriters can submit their unreleased songs through the web portal up until October the 17th, so you have just under a month. We have two semi-finals, 5 songs each. That's February the 8th and February the 15th. You get a week off to get ready for everything, and the grand final on February the 29th. Over in the Netherlands, lots of names are volunteering themselves that they'd be quite happy to represent the Netherlands on home soil. Where were you all a couple of years ago? We've been looking for you for some time. Anyway, that said, if a delegation wants to accept Flurry Jansen nominating herself and we get some Nightwish on the Eurovision stage, I am so there. Thank you very much. People are going to Google that, and people will close the window very quickly. Or you'll keep it open. Be open to new music, everybody. Slovenia, EMA submissions are now open for their national final. They close on November the 18th. Spain, RTV have announced that they're going for an internal selection this year, and they've lined up a big name artist. So there's no more for Operation Triunfo based national final and the sort of runoff competition that they've used for the last 2 years. We're going back to national selection, which was used back in 2015 with Adernis and Mansur being the result of that one. Spain has been sort of bouncing around the bottom of the table, even though their fans believe that every year this is the one, this is the winner, because that's what Van does and we love them all for it. So let's see if this changes the fortunes of Spain. Sweden. 2,545 songs submitted to SVT. They're fighting for 13 places in Melodifestivalen. They'll join the song from Amanda Assa, who won through P4 and Nasta. And then the second half, the other 14 songs, will be invited by SVT especially to take part in the 4 heats running through. We know our cities, we know our dates, we've had them already, we know the locations, we now know our host as well. We have 3 for this year. Lena Headland, so one for the Alcazar fans. David Sundin, comedian and writer, scripted Melodifestivalen in 2015 and 2016 as well, so we can get a good flavour of what the show might involve there, because you would assume that it would be targeted towards his taste. And Linnea Henriksen, the pop and jazz singer, who you would have seen in last year's Intergalactic semi-final 3 of Melodifestivalen, rounds up the trio. Alright then, just to make sure we got all the boxes. Semi-final 1, February the 1st, Sabrina Linköping. Semi-final 2, February the 8th, Scandinavium in Gothenburg. Semi-final 3, February the 15th in the Co-op Norrbotten in Luleå. Semi-final 4 is February the 22nd in Malmö, at Malmö Arena. Andra Chansen, February the 29th, is in Eskilstuna, which I think is the first time they've had a Melodifestivalen event. I will check. And we're back at Friends Arena on March the 7th for the grand final. Switzerland, 515 songs submitted through to SRF. That deadline is now closed. They're going through that. They may well have another Luca Hani sitting in that pile. I do not know. We'll find out soon enough. And finally, for the news, the United Kingdom. The BBC have unsurprisingly confirmed that they will be returning to the Eurovision Song Contest in 2020, but there are some changes to the process. They have partnered with record label BMG, and the press release handily reminds us of some of the names that are on that roster, including Kylie and George Ezra. We look down the roster, we also have such delightful names as Francesco Gabbani and Moselle Merlot, Cypress Hill, Jean-Michel Jarre, Black Sabbath. Oh, Black Sabbath. But don't get your hopes up just yet. It looks like it's going to be an internal selection. It wasn't said anything in the press release, but the BBC news coverage did say we were moving over to an internal selection. So I would expect either a performer who's very early in their career, who's happy to risk going to the Eurovision Song Contest, or a performer nearer the end of their BMG contract who's looking for one last throw of the dice, one last go to get that big splash and get the name out there and recognised. What will happen, we might not know until like the heads of delegation meeting in the middle of March. If it's an internal selection, it could just be, nope, not saying anything, and calm down, or there might be some slow build up or whatever. As with all of the country news, we will keep you up to date in our regular Insight News podcast here. So do keep subscribing to us. ESCinsight.com. You'll find us in your iTunes, your Spotify's, Google Podcast Player. And if you are already listening, do feel free to leave us a review. You can't leave us the dues points. It's between 1 and 5 stars. And the more reviews and the more stars, the higher up the search rankings we go. So if you want to help people find out more about the contest and ourselves here at the team, then please do so. Already mentioned on the podcast, but I'll lift it up one more time for your attention. It's Ellie Chalkley and Anne Squires in the recent edition of Eurovision Castaways, and of course from ESC Armchair, being abandoned on the Ile de Besançon with only 8 Eurovision records and a luxury to keep her entertained. And of course Ellie and the rest of the team who follow Strictly Come Dancing, and the Keep Dancing podcast has kicked off again for another season that will run through until December, so you can have a little bit of a Latin and ballroom in your ear as well. Busy week or two in terms of dates for national finals, all for Junior Eurovision, it has to be said. Belarus on the 20th of September, Wales and Russia on the 24th, the Netherlands on the 28th, and Poland on the 29th. Ne Party Pas en Moi returns to Glasgow. It's the autumn edition of the party on the 25th of October. Tickets are on sale now. Links will be back at the ESCinsight.com websites, or you can search for Ne Party Pas on Facebook and on the web. And we know lots of Eurovision artists go touring all the time, but let's just flag up that Kaino are doing 6 dates in Australia between the 30th of October and the 3rd of November. Details are on their Facebook page, and tickets are on sale now. We also believe there's a new single coming. So all is good with the world. There we go. That's it. That's your It's the Insight News podcast. Thanks very much for listening. We will catch you on the next show. It really does feel like Eurovision's underway now. You know, we had the it's September the 1st, let's do one. But now we've got news, we've got speculation, we've got excitement, we've got intrigue, and we've got guitars. The It's the Insight News podcast this week was hosted by Ewan Spence, written by Ewan Spence, Samantha Ross, and Ellie Chalkley.